Hello everybody, and welcome to another Tech Talk. You may have heard me mention that I've had my production workstations running Fedora Silverblue, which is an immutable distro and has been in general working flawlessly for me these past few months. However, all is not perfect in Silverblue land. Specifically, I wanted to tackle projects involving other hypervisor platforms, such as developing virtual machine products for VMware, vSphere, and VirtualBox, not just kernel virtual machines. These products rely on their own kernel modules, compiled against the current host kernel. They simply are not compatible with immutable systems yet, so I'm now testing traditional distros such as Fedora Workstation, Red Hat Enterprise and clones, and Debian. For this project, distros with stable LTS kernels are most likely to succeed for my projects. One of these distros is of course Debian Stable. I'm going to be thoroughly stress testing Debian right after this. The mission for this video is to install Debian 11 Bullseye on a BTRFS file system and TimeShift for maximum speed and efficiency, install and configure VirtualBox and its kernel modules, and then upgrade to Debian 12 Bookworm to see how VirtualBox handles the transition from kernel 5.10 to kernel 6.1. This is a lot, so let's get started. Let's boot from the DVD containing the live ISO for GNOME desktop environment, Debian 11. Let's stand by for it to come up. And then we can get started installing Debian Bullseye to begin with for our stress test today. Okay, you've got the standard GNOME 38, I think, welcome screen and dialogues. So let's just click through those really quickly. I want to keep this video as short as possible today. Let's go ahead and start using GNOME. Okay, let's launch the Calamares installer. And click through this very quickly. Looking good. So we'll do a manual partitioning today. I'm not using text installer because the font size can be a bit too small for you guys. So I'm using Calamares, and besides, this works perfectly fine. So we'll use master boot record for our target drive, and we'll just make one giant BTRFS root file system. We'll mount it on root, and I'll enable the boot and the root flags for this partition. So one partition, BTRFS, that's all we'll do for this virtual machine. Now we won't use GPT, we'll continue with master boot record. Let me set up my account. We'll call this virtual machine Debian, Debi1. Give myself a password and enter it twice for good measure. We'll click next here. So the summary looks good. We'll go ahead and install. So I'll edit out much of this so you guys won't get bored with me and make this video as short as possible. It's basically taking the image on the live ISO and installing it on the hard disk. Good, we're done. Let's restart. Move the live medium. Now we'll select option 1, which is the hard drive. And stand by for our freshly installed Debian 11 Bullseye system. And there it is. There's the GNOME display manager. Go in here. We'll click next again, as we did before. Let's get through this. Okay. Cool. Good old Debian 11 Bullseye. Let's change the display settings to something more reasonable here. Using a 1080p capture, display capture, 60 Hertz. And Also, for the demonstration, I'll turn off the screen blanker and the automatic suspend, because a lot of these operations will take some time, and I don't want the machine to go to sleep on us while I'm doing a demonstration. Okay, the fonts are tiny. Let's fix that. So I just opened up GNOME Tweaks. I'm going to go to Appearance, Applications. I'd wait at Dark. Dark mode is a little better for my eyes, hopefully for yours as well. We'll do subpixel anti-aliasing. I'm going to go to size 14. All these fonts hopefully makes things a little more legible. Cool. And I'll just add the minimize and maximize buttons on the window, the GNOME windows. Cool. Quick configuration complete. Let's move along. Open up the terminal. Yeah, the font's a little bit too small still, so I'll just make it bigger. First things first, update the system. So sudo apt-get update. Enter my password here. And then we do an upgrade. The GNOME software is busy right now. Let's don't use that. Let's try again. Cool. We'll do this by the upgrade by hand instead of going through the GNOME software utility. For best results. Okay, a whole bunch of LibreOffice updates and a whole bunch of other things. Since this ISO was released in April of this year, it's been almost a couple of months. Systemctl reboot. After the update, so we're running kernel 5.10, which is an older LTS kernel. Looks like the updates succeeded. All right, let's open up the terminal again. Make it bigger, font, full size. Let's check the OS release file. So as you can see, we are indeed running Debian 11 Bullseye. And so we're just pretending we've been running Debian all this time. Debian 12 is about to come out. So we're just going to make sure we're fully up to date. We'll do a full upgrade here. Yeah. So nothing much newer. Still on kernel 5.10. All right. So sudo apt-get install. First thing we want to do is TimeShift. So we're using that heavily today with our Btrfs file system and snapshots. And ZRAM tools, because as you recall earlier, we did not configure a swap partition. I don't like swap partitions on SSDs. I like to keep my SSDs as little wear as possible. So let's enable ZRAM swap as compressed swap in RAM memory. We'll enable the service now. The service is called zramswap.service. And there we go. So if I do now a free -H for human readable, you can see we have a little swap area there, 255 megs. And that's good enough for our test today. Again, this is not a video about configuration and full setup. We just want to test some things. So let's run TimeShift on our freshly updated system. So it recognized we're on Btrfs. We'll install the snapshots on the system drive. We'll enable Btrfs Q groups, and setup is complete. Let's create the first snapshot. See, that was instantaneous. If this were an ext4 file system, it would take us minutes to run snapshots. We're doing Btrfs on SSDs because that is what one does nowadays. That's all I ever do on my systems is pretty much Btrfs. Because ain't nobody got that time to wait for snapshots. Okay, So now that that's done, let's launch Firefox, just the ESR version, of course, and let's look for VirtualBox downloads. Let's download the VirtualBox installer. Go to Downloads, the Linux distributions, and I'm going to check the bottom here, all distributions, the generic version. I'll save the link as this .run bundle. Cool. That's already done. And next, for testing the virtualization, let's download the Arch Linux ISO for testing purposes. It's pretty quick and light. It's text only. So I'm going to use the worldwide mirror and download the latest June ISO for Arch Linux. And there it's done. Very nice. Let me close this here. So we're done with Firefox for now. Okay, make the font a little bigger. Full screen. Let's go to the downloads folder. So we've got two downloads, the ISO file and the installer for VirtualBox. So let's make the installer executable with chmod plus x. And as root, sudo, let's run VirtualBox installer. Here we go. So it's installing to/opt/virtualbox. That's fine. Fine by me. We'll ignore the Python 3.9 install and usable. Python has issues. So it is what it is. It's beyond the scope of this video to look into Python. Let's launch Oracle VirtualBox. And as you can see and probably expect, you can't enumerate USB devices because we're not part of the VBox users group. So let's fix this. Let's sudo usermod -a capital G to add the group VBox users to the Steven account, my account. Then once that's done, we just join the group by typing new group VBox users and hit return. And then a quick ID shows we are now in the VBox users group. So let's quit. Let's relaunch VirtualBox. It still has the can't enumerate error. So I'm just going to see if logging out or restarting. Let's just restart. Restart the machine and try again. I have a feeling now it'll work. Yeah, all this would be not possible with Silverblue or a immutable Linux distro working with these software virtualization solutions. So that looks like the error went away. So let's test the Arch ISO and see if we can get an ArchBox, VirtualBox working. Okay, for the ISO, I'll choose our ISO that we just downloaded. Next, I'll just leave everything default. It's just a quick and dirty test. Call this VirtualBox Archie1. And I found VBox SVGA to be an optimal video card, virtual video card for Arch Linux. Okay, so we need to compile the kernel modules, as I explained earlier in this video. So let's do this by running the VBox config utility. So let's launch it with sudo /bin/VBox config. Do what it advises us to do. Get the password. Okay, so we need to set up the system to build kernel modules. So it's advising us to install with apt-get this package for kernel 5.10, which is the LTS kernel running for Debian Bullseye 11. There we go. So now, let's try VBox config again. Now it's building the VirtualBox kernel modules. And it should be finished any second. There it is. Okay. Fantastic. So, let's close this error message. Let's try to start again. Okay, so now it launches. And there's our Arch Linux virtual machine. Sorry it's a bit small, guys, but the text in there is not so important. We want to know if it boots the Arch Linux ISO successfully, right? That's a good test for VirtualBox as our base reference for our later upgrade to Debian 12 Bookworm, which is what I suspect many of you are here for. So waiting for the prompt. There it is. Set font per 128N, terminus 128 size. So you can see, let's check networking. Ping google.com, and it's working. Our virtual network is also functional. So I think VirtualBox is configured correctly. So let's systemctl power off the virtual machine because we're done with that test. Here we go. Let's exit out of VirtualBox Manager. Let's close terminal. Let's do TimeShift because we just installed and configured VirtualBox successfully. So let's create another snapshot. As you can see, through the magic of Btrfs, this is automatically almost instantaneous. Unlike with an ext4 file system, we have to wait minute after minute. So that's let's do a pre-bookworm upgrade because we're about to do the deed here and upgrade our system here from Debian 11 Bullseye to Debian 12 Bookworm. So to do that, let's open up the terminal. Now, the Debian Wiki recommends you do this from a terminal, a text console for maximum safety so it doesn't crash midway through and make your system unusable. But I'm going to risk it and use the GNOME terminal instead, so you guys can read the text and it won't be too small. So I'm modifying the sources.list and exchanging Bullseye for Bookworm, as the Debian Wiki recommends for a system upgrade between releases. And we're going to add the contrib, non-free, and non-free firmware repos, or sections rather, to the repository. We'll just do the switcheroo from Bookworm, from Bullseye to Bookworm rather, for the other repos as well. So that includes updates, and also do the same for security. Bookworm security, also for the source repos here. I don't generally use the source, but you never know. So we're good to go with our sources list. So now that that's done, let's refresh by doing a sudo apt-get clean in case there are any straggling packages that are clogging up the cache. Let's do apt-get update. It looks like all our repos are available and functional, as you can see. Let's clear the terminal and do a sudo apt-get upgrade. Whole bunch of packages, hundreds and hundreds of packages. So I'm going to edit out most of this. Skip over a lot of this via video editing. Otherwise this video would be like over an hour long. It's crazy how much time a distro upgrade takes when you don't have the fastest network connection or the fastest hardware. Okay. Just do the keyboard configuration. The complaint earlier, I noticed that the keyboard wasn't configured correctly. Oh, we fixed this now. Okay. Once that's done, then the wiki says do a full upgrade. So that's over 1,000 packages it'll handle for the upgrade. A lot of those seem to be LibreOffice, good chunk. Red Hat Fedora, for the next releases, I hear they will be leaving the LibreOffice unbundled from the main distro distributions, which I think makes sense because they should spend more time on getting the flatpaks better. Okay, for Grub, we'll keep the local version configured, and we just have dev VDA because it's only one partition that we'd like to install Grub on. So that's done. Okay, we skipped a whole bunch of time here, folks. So let's do a sudo apt-get auto-remove. A whole bunch of packages we don't need anymore. A couple hundred or so. Now that that's done, let's do a systemctl reboot. Rebooting with fingers crossed. Ah, this looks like Debian 12 Bookworm. There it is. So, standing by for there it is, GDM. So we're running GNOME 42 or something like that, or GNOME 43. All right, let's open up a terminal, bigger font. Let's check the OS release file. Yep, Debian 12, Debian GNU Linux 12 Bookworm. Looks like our upgrade is successful. Ready to continue testing. So let's launch Oracle VM VirtualBox Manager. Let's start our Arch Linux VirtualBox. Uh-oh, okay. So we're running kernel 6.1 right now. So we need to rebuild the kernel modules. So let's run the vboxconfig utility as we did with Debian 11 Bullseye. Sudo sbin vboxconfig. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, and once again, we have to install the headers modules for our current running 6.1 kernel, so we can rebuild the kernel modules for VirtualBox against the currently running kernel. There, I think I said that right. Okay, let's close this, let's close that, let's try and relaunch again. Okay, still complaining, so we may have to encourage it a little bit. Let's relaunch. Let's see if that's enough. No, it's not enough. Well, looks like we may need to restart again. That's okay. This VM is fast enough. Won't take that long. So for every major kernel update, you need to rebuild these kernel modules, and that's very simple if you can run the utility, which you can't under Silverblue. I found that out the hard way. That's why I'm doing this today. Testing Debian. And I'll test Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Yeah, looks like that worked. So we're running our Arch Linux VirtualBox in the same one we set up in Debian 11. We're running it on Debian 12 Bookworm. So VirtualBox pretty much survived with the module rebuild, the kernel module rebuild, and recompile against the new kernel. It survived the major upgrade from Debian 11 to Debian 12, as you can see. Runs exactly the same as before. Let me just check to make sure everything's functional still. Ping google.com, and there you go. Networking, everything's working. So let's power this off. Systemctl power off. Very nice. Okay, so let's open up the terminal here. And I really like for my apps and for my workflow, let's sudo apt-get install DistroBox for easy Podman containers and newest runtimes, and Flatpak for the latest apps that I use. I use Flatpaks for pretty much all of my workflow, including OBS, KDN Live, the usual suspects. Work fantastic for me as Flatpaks. So we've got access to those now. Let me just test DistroBox, because that's available for Debian 12 Bookworm. Let's do a simple DistroBox create, which will create a Fedora Toolbox 36, so Fedora 36 container. So it'll download the image, and then we can enter it with DistroBox. Enter my DistroBox to spin up our Fedora container. So there it goes. We're now in Stephen at my DistroBox, as you can see by the prompt. Let's check the OS release file. We're running Fedora Linux Workstation 36, a container image. Which means we can just do sudo dnf update, and let's update the kernel. The container rather. Okay. It's that simple. Super fast, almost bare metal speed. Running Fedora on top of Debian 12 Bookworm. Okay, so that's done. So let's create another snapshot, which happens instantly, as you can see. Easy on the SSD, minimal space. And we'll do, call it post Bookworm upgrade. There we go. Now say we run into some issues with our Debian 12 upgrade. We need to go back for whatever reason to Debian 11. All we do is select the pre-Bookworm upgrade and restore to it. And instantly the restore is completed. So in order to make the rollback to Debian 11 happen, we just need to restart the machine as it tells us to do. And here we go. We're back to the old grub and old kernel 5.10. And the old GNOME GDM. Looks like the rollback to Bullseye was seamless and successful. Let me check the OS release file to make sure you guys know that I'm not cheating in this video. We're back to Bullseye. Let's check that VirtualBox is functional. Let's launch our Arch Linux. All right, so looks like it is, as if nothing ever happened. So don't worry, if you somehow don't like Debian 12 yet, or you have some compatibility issues with the latest Debian, you can always roll back using Btrfs, root file system, at and at home, and the layout and TimeShift. Nothing can be simpler. Very easy. Very little configuration in this video so far, as you probably noticed. The only big configuration change we did was the sources list for apt for the upgrade. Let's do a set font to 128N, and it's pinkgoogle.com. See, nothing broke. VirtualBox is as it was when we left it before the upgrade to Debian 12. Let's do a power off here, systemctl. Power off. Okay. Let's close. All right. So supposing you want to go back to Debian 12. Say, oh, well, I changed my mind. I'm going back to Debian 12. Just go and select the post-Bookworm upgrade snapshot here that I've selected, and just click Restore. And bam, restore completed. So as before, all we need to do, technically, theoretically, is restart the virtual machine. Restart the box. And we're back on Debian 12. So we did an upgrade, a reversion, and another upgrade in like seconds. right? So let's check the OS release file. Yes, indeed, we're back on Debian 12 Bookworm, so you can see. And let's see if DistroBox still works. Let's see, DistroBox enter my something. I'm trying to tap complete, but it's not working. DistroBox list. It's my dash DistroBox. That's right. Okay. So that we just exited 3 minutes ago, by the way. That's how fast back and forth happened. All right. So we're back in our Fedora container. And there it is. Okay, let's Control D out of the container. But it's still running, right? So DistroBox list shows that everything, the container is still running in the background if we need that. And we still have access to flatpaks. Flatpak list shows nothing. I haven't added the flat hub repo. That's for a different video. It's been done to death in other videos. Let's launch Oracle VirtualBox one more time. See if everything's still working. So yeah, you can go back and forth between Debian 11 and Debian 12 in your heart's content in like minutes. It's amazing the power of this setup and the power of Btrfs. And we haven't even talked about transparent compression with Btrfs, which adds further to speed and efficiency and reduced SSD solid-state drive wear. But again, it's out of the scope of this video. So let's do set font to 128N again, and ping for the third time, I think, google.com, and there we go. So everything's functional. Looks like this was exactly what at least I was hoping for. Well, I'd say these results make Debian Linux a strong contender for my requirements. A very stable and solid base with access to containers and flatpaks if you need the latest apps and runtimes. I hope this demonstration was useful to you. If so, please leave a like to help with the YouTube algorithms and make it more visible. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, take care and have lots of fun.